Serious, what's the worst way you've seen someone **ck up their life? Guy cheated on his wife with SIL. He was an employee at a company owned by the wife's family. So he lost a spouse, house, and a job, all for a little bit of action. A guy I knew in HS drove drunk one night and hit a car with 3 girls in it and killed all 3. His sister was driving the other car with her 2 friends in it. Not only did he go to prison for involuntary manslaughter, but he had to go with the guilt of killing his sister. Seeing someone who literally bet their life savings at the casino despite having no chance. My dad had the live fast, die young philosophy for life. But he forgot to die young. Now he is in his 50s with the body and strength of an 80-year-old and all his friends are dead already. For some reason, I never much thought about how overdoses exist on a gradient. I passively figured you'd either be dead or you'd be fine. But when you overdose, you stop breathing. That means oxygen doesn't get to your brain. That means your brain starts to die. And that means that if you overdose and get saved, you may wake up with severe cognitive impairments or paralyzed. Saw that happen in EMS school when I was doing my practicals. A guy I knew posted a Facebook picture of his new motorcycle on Thursday. On Friday morning, his wall was full of "RIP bro." Turns out, he went too fast getting on the freeway, sideswiped a car, lost control and crashed, then was hit by a truck. It wasn't even 24 hours after he posted the pic. Heroin. I never would have thought when I was a teenager that by the time I was in my mid-30s so many people would have either died or completely ruined their life. Crazy. Not cooperating during a divorce. A family member has become so vengeful that he will do anything within his ability to reduce the amount of money his ex-wife will get, even by destroying his own life to do it. Turned to alcohol, even more than before. He's an alcoholic, then lost job, then spends all of his money, including retirement funds, on frivolous stuff. Didn't bother showing up to his contempt of court hearing and now he's about to lose his home. Court doesn't care of course, but he still owes whatever the settlement was. But no idea how he can pay it. It's been a stated goal, spend it all so she can't get anything. So yeah, choosing to throw your life away over a divorce. Sleep with his baby mama's younger sister, who was underage at the time. My younger brother is doing a 12-year sentence for that. My childhood best friend brought her baby to a drug deal, and some guy stole her car with the baby inside. The baby was found a short while later, screaming, but safe. It all went downhill for her from there. Last Tuesday a coworker stabbed a dude in the head with a kitchen knife. At work. Around vacationers. At 10 in the morning. His life has changed pretty dramatically pretty quickly. My former buddy from high school and 2 of his friends murdered a guy in a torturous manner for about $100. Some weed. And just fun. They took the poor guy out into a creek in the middle of winter and slowly killed him with a penknife and rocks. It took 2 hours. 2 of the 3 got the death penalty and one of them, my former buddy, is serving life. Then about 10 years later my old best friend murdered his girlfriend and is also now in prison for life. I hadn't talked to either of these guys in a couple years, but I'm pretty sure that *********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** Death by overdose has become almost common among people I grew up with. It's very sad. Also my friend from elementary school murdered someone, so yeah, that too. Suicide was not successful. The one I know personally was a guy who was in a car crash that was so bad that he had to be airlifted. His heart stopped at least 3 times on the trip there and he spent the next week drifting in and out of consciousness. He recovered physically, but his brain is wired completely differently. He can't remember very much, has a great deal of anxiety and impulse control issues, and he became a heroin/sex addict for years and managed to find himself on death's door 3 more times during these years due to ODs. Luckily he's been clean for a good amount of time, but he lost years of his life because of a fuck-up. The one I didn't witness personally was a guy that a friend of mine had grown up with. The guy had several issues, not the least of which was that he was suicidal. One day, he decided he didn't want to live, so he goes and grabs a gun from his dad's collection. He loads it up, puts the gun in his mouth, and pulls the trigger. I'm not a ballistics expert, but apparently, between the angle of the gun and the ricochet off the bones in his skull, the bullet ended up blowing his nose off, destroying his sinuses and leaving him without many teeth. The worst part was that he managed to live through it. He had to spend a great deal of time getting surgeries and therapy. But he was never really the same after something like that. Having a kid when you're not ready. Not trying to get into the pros and cons of parenthood here, but suddenly becoming a parent with no plan in place isn't good for anyone. Nah, we just pull out, bro, you're 16, what the fuck. Literally 2 weeks later, she got pregnant. Murdered his estranged wife. Tried to murder his son. And committed suicide. Had a good friend who was really damn smart in school and even coding at age 15. He was completely straight edge in high school. He wouldn't even smoke a joint with me, and I don't think he even drank or partied once. College opportunities, left and right. I really thought he was gonna do better in life than me or the rest of my friends. All that changed after we graduated. He dated a girl who was a lot more into the party scene. At one point, I ended up buying weed from them. And they were into a lot more than just weed. Then one night his girlfriend and buddy take a bunch of ecstasy. Rolls his car and kills his girlfriend. My buddy was paralyzed from waist down after that. Their other friend got arrested for possession of X. The parents of the girl dropped manslaughter charges on my friend. No idea why. After that my buddy laid pretty low. No social media talked to him only once or twice. Was kinda weird. Ain't gonna lie. We lost contact. Few years later he's driving and gets in a head-on collision. Turns out my buddy was high on amphetamines and killed the other driver. He was at fault and went to prison for manslaughter. I think he's out now. But haven't seen or heard from him since. No idea where he's at. Edit, answer some questions. Yes, I mean my buddy was paralyzed from the waist down and his friend claimed possession of the X. And my friend got a modified car afterwards, where the accelerator was operated by hand and it was down by the handbrake/console area. No idea where brakes were. Never drove it, but that vehicle was used in the second manslaughter. My partner's sister. A beautiful girl. Graduated from college as a single mom. Worked her ass off and got a good position at work. She got fired one day for using company's car to go to the beach with friends. Then she lost her car because she couldn't afford to fix it. She borrowed her mom's car. Crashed it within a week. She started to drink a lot more. Gained a lot of weight. She suddenly married her ex-boyfriend. A devoted unemployed Catholic guy. Gave birth 2 kids. Fought like crazy. Calling cops on each other all the time. Crying, yelling, cheating. She abandoned her eldest son. Moved to NJ with her husband and 2 other kids. Heroin overdose. More drinking. More calling the police. Got injured. Not doing what the doctor said. Might lose her right foot. Edit, let me add more details. 1. My partner helped her get a job after she got fired. She lost it due to violations too. She told me she didn't want to work anymore, so no matter how much she and her husband fight she wouldn't get a divorce. 3. Her husband was a crazy Catholic. Went to mental institute before. 4. She got pregnant last year after her heroin OD. She had a miscarriage. 5. She abandoned her 15-year-old son. Told him to go stay with his dad. Didn't say goodbye. 6. She and her husband both involved with benefit fraud. 7. I once saw her drink a big cup of vodka for breakfast. Edit 2. Her childhood was the same as my partner's. Used to be rich. Dad was alcoholic and lost everything. Parents divorced. Mom raised 3 kids. Mom was emotional. Treated everyone like shit when she was in a bad mood. She said she was raped by her other brother. She was the first college graduate in her family. When I first met her, she was this beautiful blonde lady. Living in a cute house with her son. With a good career, and her life just couldn't be better. Staying in an unhealthy relationship. Alternatively, heroin use. Back in grade 10, Me and a group of my friends that I knew since kindergarten decided to start playing World of Warcraft. As expected, we spent countless hours and time together enjoying our journey through Azeroth. Unfortunately, our one friend named Chris took things a little too far. He began to stop doing his homework, staying up late at night, and eating copious amounts of junk food. We began playing at the start of grade 10, and by the end of our first semester, Chris had failed all 5 classes. He had never failed a class in his life prior. Not even just fail. 3 of his classes he received the automatic lowest mark you were forced to give a student of 35. He gained a lot of weight, grew out his hair, which he had never done prior in his entire life, and his hair was super greasy. From that semester forward, he never lost the weight. His hair always stayed long and greasy, and he was never interested in school again enough to make an effort. Still to this day, 12 to 13 years since WoW, he remains the same dude that WoW made him instead of the smart, clean, and fit boy he used to be. Never lived up to his potential because being an elf hunter is too good of an opportunity to pass up. My mom's cousin drunk drove from the horse races and killed a guy driving home from work to his family. Honestly, he should have gotten a harder sentence than he got. He mentioned the hardest part was when they housed him with all the pedophiles, so he couldn't even have pictures of his own kids up because they were truly disgusting. The parole terms were pretty strict, and I hope he honestly spends the rest of his life trying to somehow make this better. On another note, was trying to find an article on the incident and found out the drunk driver who killed my high school deputy and his wife, who was a teacher at my primary school, was caught again drink driving after he'd already been punished for their deaths. My town has a lot of deaths like this. Folk just don't do it. Knew somebody who went through 10 years of college and was only 2 years away from being a doctor. Then quit and now rise to work his debt away at 7-Eleven. My sister, brilliant mind, always seems like the smartest are capable of finding really disastrous ways of causing chaos. She met my late brother-in-law. He got her on drugs. She left university, got sober when she was pregnant. But after the babies were weaned, it didn't last. Our mother dies. They were estranged. She kicks her husband out. Goes cold turkey. Was doing well. Then her husband died of a heroin overdose. She went on a year-long tear. What turned her around? Her kids were taken from her. Only the youngest one went to a foster home for 48 hours and they were placed with me. She got her life back together. Got clean. Had a baby girl. She became an activist in our community. She's now in university again. Beyond proud of her. My dad died at peace knowing she was becoming who she was always meant to be. My brother and I had no illusions. She was the extraordinary one. This girl I met when I worked retail had just moved to town from out of state. She was hard worker. Lived with her brother so she could save money for school. She hustled. She worked 2 jobs. Saved enough money for school. Then got pregnant. Over the next couple of years she managed to get pregnant 2 more times. All 3 kids have different dads and 2 of the dads have been to war or in jail. So now, this girl who was so smart, determined, and hard-working, is a struggling, single mom in poverty. It breaks my heart. A relative's friend was driving without his license and ended up getting into a car accident and killing 3 or 4 people. I don't remember. He got life imprisonment. And he was pretty young too. In his early 20s. Gambling and alcohol. A guy I knew owned several restaurants and a big food manufacturing company making Asian foods nationwide, USA, and expanded into Canada. The company was doing well under his family. But his family moved back to China and signed over everything to him. He partied like no tomorrow. He'd drink 1K, 2K a week with his friends. Had a girlfriend who was super attractive. But she knew she was attractive and she went her whole life being a trophy girlfriend. He spent lavishly on her. He got into gambling. I heard he'd lost up to 50K at a time and in no time the treadmill went too fast. He started falling behind on car payments. His mortgage. His credit cards. His credit lines. He didn't pay for equipment leases. Slowly, everything unraveled for him. He lost everything. He used to drive a S65, not S63, and an G65, not a G63. He's now driving a Toyota Tundra. Hey, that's more in my price range. But for him, it's an obvious downgrade. He used to live in a 10,000 SQ Fort home. He now has a bachelor's apartment. He owns the unit though, and his business? Gone. They sold it to another family from China, including their building. Whatever his parents had in this country was gone. They just had some savings and property in a major city in China. It was very sad to see. I didn't really have a close relationship with him, but my parents did. My own life, opiates plus crack equals spiral out of control. My cousin got his high school girlfriend pregnant. Then again. And again. Now, he's 28. Working, full-time. No, high school diploma. And miserable. Watched the sister of someone very close to me get deep into a heroin addiction over the course of a few years. When she broke up with her boyfriend, who had been supporting her habits and lifestyle, she wound up selling her body to sustain her addiction. Homeless, kidnapped, raped, robbed, rehabs, overdoses, you name it, aside from being shot. After a good 2 to 3 years of an absolute rock bottom train wreck of a life, she successfully made it through rehab, through halfway houses, just to end up back on the streets and into the same old life of a heavy heroin addict. It was excruciating to witness, and really painful be a part of at times. Her second bout of heavy heroin use led her to using her body to make money on a full-time basis. After another year or so, she ended up with one of her customers in a relationship that ultimately led to her getting out of all of it. It's been just over 2 years, and it is obviously still a sore subject. We were a part of her 1-year sobriety meeting, but some of the scenarios she's brought up are horrifying. My best friend, who had a little dating experience, got royally kicked in the dick by himself. He had not had much dating experience aside from this one girl whom he had been dated for just a little over a year. And even that was 2 years before he got into his next relationship. He's at a concert and he meets this girl who happens to be a cousin of a buddy of his. The two hit it off that night. 3 months later, they made their relationship official. And then she left to go visit some family on the other end of the country for 3 months. As soon as she got back, he proposed to her at the airport. Keep in mind, my buddy is only making minimum wage and does not even have his GED. Yet, somehow, he managed to buy a car for her, only to find out that her dad bought her one. So when he tried to resell it, it was a piece of shit. 4 months later, the two officially moved in together and bought an 08 Dodge Ram. And this is where it gets bad. 2 months after they move in, they break up. She tries to trap him into a pregnancy with her. He eventually gets to the point where he's not even staying in the same house that's under his name. He is sleeping in his car outside his parents' place on the other end of town.